you. So you sent over some really interesting food for thought.
Yeah, excellent.
And what really kind of jumped out, I think, is this common struggle, right? We set these big, exciting goals,
Mhm.
and then there's the day-to-day reality of actually, making progress.
Yeah, the grind.
Exactly. So for this deep dive, we're going to look at a really fascinating shift in thinking, moving away from just like staring at the finish line
Right.
and instead digging into the power of building consistent, almost ridiculously small daily actions.
It sounds counterintuitive, maybe, but the insights we found are pretty surprising. How these tiny habits can be a much more reliable engine for change than just, pure willpower.
Totally. Sheer force of will only gets you so far.
Absolutely. And what's really eye-opening, I think, is this subtle but, powerful distinction between, like, wishing for something
Mm-hmm.
and truly starting to see yourself as someone who is actually on that path already.
Okay.
One of the foundational ideas we've been exploring is this whole concept of identity.
Right. So thinking about it, it's not just saying, okay, someday I want to speak English fluently.
No, it's more about starting to cultivate the identity
Yeah.
right now of being, say, an English speaker in progress.
Okay, let's unpack that a bit. So it's less about this perfect future version of you
Yeah, exactly.
and more about who you are today, the things you do today, even the tiny things that line up with where you want to go.
Precisely.
It kind of reminds me of, breaking in a new pair of shoes.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Yeah, like the first time you put them on, they feel a bit stiff, maybe a little weird, foreign.
Uh-huh. Don't quite feel like yours yet.
Right. But the more you wear them, the more you walk around in them.
They start to mold to your feet.
Exactly. They get comfortable. They feel natural. It's like by consistently walking in that identity, being that English learner, even for a few minutes each day, it just gradually becomes a more real, more authentic part of who you are.
Perfectly put. It's embodying that identity through consistent action. Doesn't matter how tiny. And, that leads perfectly into another key insight that really stood out for me. The surprisingly potent effect of starting small, like really small.
Oh, man. Yeah. The idea of comically small really hit home. We've all done it, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You draft these grand, ambitious study schedules, ironclad.
Yep. Gonna study for 2 hours every night.
And maybe it lasts, a day? 2 days? Before life just, boom, throws a wrench in it.
Happens every time.
But this suggestion, to start with just 1 minute of focused effort on your English, that feels, it feels almost ridiculously achievable.
Doesn't it? It lowers the bar so much.
Yeah. I read this example, someone committing to read just one sentence in their target language before bed. Just one.
Okay.
And how that tiny little commitment often just naturally stretched into 10 minutes, 15 minutes, because the hardest part, that inertia of starting, was already overcome.
Right, getting over that initial hump.
It's not that tiny push that gets a massive snowball rolling down a hill.
Yeah.
Looks like nothing at first, but then it just gathers this unstoppable momentum. And actually, I saw something saying that consistently doing something for just a minute a day, it's way more effective long-term than like occasional big bursts of effort.
That's exactly right. It really shifts the emphasis, doesn't it? Away from the intensity and onto the unwavering regularity. Consistency, even in these tiny doses, builds a much stronger foundation for long-term habits, much more than, relying on motivation showing up sporadically.
Yeah, because motivation is fickle.
So fickle. So if your goal is, say, building a solid English learning habit, starting with something like listening to just 1 minute of English audio every day, it's so small, your brain barely even flags it as a task or a challenge.
Right. Sneaks under the radar.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which makes it much, much easier to actually stick with.
Okay, so consistency over intensity, starting tiny. What else? Because, speaking of things that operate almost subconsciously, let's talk about cues. This idea that they're kind of these underrated habit-building tools hidden in plain sight.
They really are. And what's fascinating is just how much of our daily behavior is, automatic. It's a response to these ingrained cues in our environment, in our routines.
Like muscle memory for daily life.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Think about someone who, say, the second they start making coffee in the morning, they instinctively grab their phone.
Guilty.
Right? We all have those. The key insight here is to consciously step into that loop, that well-worn cue response pattern.
Okay.
So instead of grabbing the phone while the kettle boils, consciously decide, nope, going to grab my English vocabulary notebook instead.
Ah, so you're not fighting the cue, the coffee making.
No, you're using it.
You're just redirecting the response.
Exactly. You're gently rerouting yourself. When that familiar cue, the coffee making, the smell of coffee pops up, that smell itself can become the new cue for a quick English activity.
That's clever. It's like a little nudge at a familiar crossroads, guiding you down a slightly different path.
Precisely.
And then there's that really smart strategy of, like, linking new habits to stuff you already do without thinking.
Habit stacking.
Right. These established routines become anchors, powerful anchors, for the new behavior you want.
Because they're already solid.
Yeah, like deciding, okay, while I brush my teeth every morning, which you're going to do anyway, right?
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. While I do that, I'll listen to an English podcast, or, while I wait for the toast to pop, I'll flick through a few flashcards. These are non-negotiable parts of your day, so attaching the new habit makes it way more likely to stick.
It really does. Every time you brush your teeth, boom, trigger the English listening.
Automatic.
And if you think about, like, the brain science behind it, these pairings basically leverage neural pathways that are already there. They're well-trodden paths.
So it's easier for the new habit to take root.
Much smoother process. It's like tapping into an existing network instead of building a whole new one from scratch.
Makes sense.
And this idea, it goes beyond just time-based routines, too. Our physical space, our environment is constantly giving us these subtle cues.
Right, right. Like changing your phone wallpaper?
Yeah. To a phrase in English you're trying to learn. Or setting a daily reminder that just pops up. It's a little visual prompt.
Or just leaving your study stuff out where you can see it.
Exactly. Putting your English textbook or notebook right there on your desk or by your couch where you can't help but see it, it becomes an environmental cue.
Yeah, the environment kind of whispering reminders at you. I like that.
Me too.
Like leaving your English journal and a pen right by the bed, first thing you see, last thing you see.
Reduces friction.
Or specifically for learning English, using sticky notes, Post-its.
Oh yeah, classic but effective.
Labeling things around the house in English, sticking useful phrases on the fridge, the mirror.
Creates this low-key immersion. Constant load pressure exposure.
You could even just keep, like, a favorite English website or YouTube channel open in a browser tab.
A visual invitation.
It's all about making that thing you want to do, making it the path of least resistance in your daily surroundings.
Exactly. This kind of intentional design of your environment, it seriously reduces how much you need to rely on conscious effort, on that willpower, in the moment.
Yeah, which we know runs out.
Right.
Yeah.
We're basically setting the stage for success, making the good choice the easy, obvious choice.
Okay, so you're starting tiny, you're using cues, you're shaping your environment, but what about keeping it going? Because I know a lot of us, myself included, can get discouraged if we don't see, like, huge results right away.
That's a really, really important point. It brings us to how we think about progress, how we interpret it.
Okay.
The next crucial piece is tracking. Now, I know sometimes tracking sounds like, oof, another chore, another metric to beat yourself up with.
Yeah, it totally feels like pressure sometimes.
Right. But the real shift here, the helpful perspective, is to see tracking as a tool for actually building momentum, for sustaining it.
Yes. Okay, I like that frame. The idea that just seeing the progress, even tiny steps forward, that itself can be super motivating.
Hugely motivating.
It's like you plant some seeds, right? And then seeing those first little green shoots poke through the soil.
Tangible proof?
Yeah, it's proof your effort is doing something, even if the full plant isn't there yet. I read about this study where people who just put a simple mark on a calendar each day, they did their habit.
With a check mark.
Yeah, just a check mark. Even if it was only for 5 minutes, they were way more likely to stick with it long term.
Wow.
That visual chain, seeing it grow, apparently, it's really powerful. You just don't want to break the chain.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be complicated, right? No fancy spreadsheets unless you love that stuff.
No, definitely not.
A simple check mark on a wall calendar, a tally mark in a notebook, even just a quick note in your phone.
Whatever works.
Anything that gives you that immediate visual feedback, that little loop reminding you, hey, you showed up, you made progress.
It reframes the effort, doesn't it? It's not a burden, it's an achievement you can actually see building up day by day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A tangible record of your consistency.
No, okay, let's be real. Even with the best systems, the tiny habits, the cues, the tracking, there are going to be days when you just, you really don't feel like it.
Inevitable.
That's usually when we try to just, grit our teeth, rely on willpower, which sometimes works, often doesn't.
Willpower.
Yeah.
Yeah, that resource we think is essential but is often so flaky.
Totally flaky.
The analogy I love is willpower as a phone battery. It's just so relatable.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Think about
Yeah.
every single decision you make all day long. Big ones, small ones like what's for lunch.
Yeah.
Each one drains that mental energy a little.
Little sips of power.
Yeah. So by the time evening comes around and it's time for that planned English practice, your willpower battery might be blinking red,
Yeah.
dangerously low.
Been there many times.
Which is why just relying on willpower, banking on having enough of it when you need it,
Yeah.
it's just not a sustainable long-term plan.
Right. Okay. So I know I've definitely beat myself up about not having enough willpower, but this idea of prepping smarter instead of just trying to push harder,
Yeah.
that makes way more sense now.
Doesn't. It's strategic.
Yeah. It's about setting up your tools, your resources ahead of time.
Yeah.
So when the moment comes, you don't need a ton of willpower just to get started or make decisions.
You've lowered the activation energy.
Exactly. You just act. It's like laying out your gym clothes the night before.
Precisely. So for English learners, what does that look like? Maybe having your textbook and notebook already open on your desk from the night before.
Yeah.
Having your favorite language learning app already loaded up on your phone.
Or even just having the specific English article or video you plan to watch already queued up, ready to go.
Yes. By proactively removing those little barriers, those friction points, those tiny decisions, you're conserving your mental energy. You're making it so much smoother, so much easier to just slide into your English practice.
You're making the thing you want to do the default action, the easy path.
You got it.
Okay. And this next point, it might sound a little, I don't know, counterintuitive maybe, but it's about actively celebrating the small wins, the really small ones. Because I know I've definitely thought, well, that was only 5 minutes of practice. Doesn't really count. Not worth celebrating.
Oh, I think many people feel that way. But what's really interesting here is the sheer power of positive reinforcement, even for efforts that seem trivial.
Okay.
Each small win, right? Each successfully completed minute of focused practice. Think of it like making a small deposit into your self-belief bank account.
Huh. I like that. A deposit.
Yeah. And when you consistently acknowledge those wins, feel good about them, no matter how minor they seem, you become way more likely to continue doing those things. You're building this positive feedback loop in your brain.
Okay, so how do you do that without it feeling cheesy?
Fair question.
Yeah.
I came across a great suggestion, actually, just verbally acknowledging it to yourself.
Like talking to yourself.
Kinda.
Yeah.
Just saying, after you finish, nice one, got that practice in, or good job. Simple as that.
Okay. It might feel a little weird at first.
Maybe. But it's about actively reinforcing that identity.
Yeah.
Right? Not just someone who hopes to learn, but someone who is learning.
Right.
An active participant.
Connecting the action to the identity.
Exactly. So for an English learner, maybe it's just pausing after a short study session, giving yourself a little mental thumbs up.
Okay.
Or even just saying out loud, boom, that's one more step forward. It's quick, it's conscious, and it signals to your brain, hey, this effort, it matters.
Yeah.
And it feels good.
Okay. That brief moment of celebration, even tiny, it strengthens the positive link. Action equals good feeling.
Precisely.
Makes you more likely to repeat it. You're wiring in that feeling of accomplishment step by tiny step.
All right, so we've got the micro level covered, the tiny habits, cues, tracking, celebrating. Now, zooming out a bit, all these systems are great for the daily push. But what keeps them going long term? What about when the initial excitement inevitably kind of fades? Yeah, the long haul. This brings us to something absolutely crucial. Having a larger vision, a more meaningful sense of purpose behind it all.
Okay, the big picture.
Exactly. Now, this doesn't mean you need some perfectly detailed 5-year plan laminated on your wall.
Right.
But it is about consciously connecting your daily actions, those small habits, to a deeper, more personal why.
Your internal compass.
That's a great way to put it. It's what provides direction, what sustains motivation, even when the day-to-day stuff feels hard or boring or monotonous.
Right. So it's got to be more than just the surface goals, like pass the TOEFL or get that promotion.
Those can definitely get you started. They provide initial motivation for sure.
But they might not be enough to keep you going when it gets tough.
Often, no. It's about digging a bit deeper, tapping into those more profound personal reasons. Why do you really want this?
Like wanting to connect better with people from other cultures.
Yeah. Or feeling more confident when you travel.
Or just the sheer satisfaction of mastering something challenging, that personal growth feeling.
Absolutely. That deeper why, whatever it is for
Yeah.
you, that's the fuel. That's what keeps the engine running, especially when progress feels slow or you hit a setback.
Okay, so the daily systems are the engine parts, doing the work.
Uh-huh. Getting you through the tasks,
Yeah,
keeping you moving consistently.
but the vision, the why, is the fuel that powers the whole thing.
Exactly. It pulls you forward. It transforms what might just feel like effort or chores
Hmm.
into something genuinely meaningful, something aligned with who you want to be, your core values.
So for anyone listening who's learning English, it's worth taking some time to really think about that, your why, beyond just the practical stuff.
Hugely valuable. Reflect on it. Write it down, maybe, and then consciously keep it in focus. Remind yourself of it. It's an incredibly powerful source of long-term motivation and resilience, too.
Resilience, yeah, because you'll need that.
You will.
So really, the core takeaway from all this, the big message, it seems to be that while setting goals is important, it gives you direction.
Crucial direction.
It's actually the systems you build.
Yeah.
These seemingly small, consistent daily actions, those are what provide the reliable path to actually get there.
That's it. Fundamentally, these systems, they might not always feel glamorous, not always exciting in the
Yeah,
moment.
fireworks usually.
Right. But they are dependable.
Yeah.
And over the long haul, they have this incredible power to create really significant, really lasting change.
It's about shifting your main focus from obsessing over the final outcome to focusing on the ongoing process, trusting that those consistent, tiny steps, guided by that deeper why, they will eventually, inevitably lead you where you want to go.
Beautifully summarized. That's the heart of it.
So maybe for you listening right now, what's one tiny system? Just one, almost ridiculously small, something you could consciously decide to start building today. One single, super achievable action linked to your deeper why for learning English. That could just be that very first push to get that snowball of progress rolling. Something really valuable to think about maybe as you go about the rest of your day.
Definitely something to mull over.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.